Hi there, I'm Jason Ball, and this is Life After News. And today we initiate the newest member of the Life After News Club, Ellen Leyva. Ellen Leyva anchored at KBC for more than 30 years. She just retired on May 21st, and she's got big plans for her post-news life. She also talks about when news people are part of the breaking news they cover. She was impacted by the Eaton Fire in Altadena, California back in January. So she talks about that. And then she tells us about some early encounters with Justin Timberlake and Donald Trump. Here's Ellen. Welcome, Ellen Leyva, probably the newest member of the Life After News Club. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm happy to be here. It's my first podcast ever.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you for, I feel honored.
Thank you.
So you recently retired. You retired on May 21st after
Hmm.
nearly 30 years at KBC. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. It went like a whirlwind. It just flew by. 30 years.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is.
And that's, you spent the vast majority of your career there, right?
I did. I worked in Phoenix for 2 years, Sacramento for 1 year, then KCOP for 2 years, and then KABC. So I was pretty green when I came to KBC. No,
I don't believe that. You must have, Cheryl Fair must have seen something in you.
Cheryl Fair hired me when I was 8 months pregnant, and she said, "Go have your baby, then come work for us." And I was so excited, but also scared, because I was like, "Oh gosh, KBC is a big deal." It was a big jump from my old job, and so yeah, it was quite an experience. Very stressful.
Yeah. So your last day on the air was on a Wednesday, and
Hmm.
how did you feel when you woke up on Thursday morning?
I think it sunk in, Jason. It feels surreal to me. Like I keep thinking, like, what do I have to do today? And it's funny because I have felt tired since that day, but I think it's just coming down from the anxiety and anticipation of doing the retirement thing and the party. And I don't like the spotlight, which just sounds crazy for a TV person, but I'm not exactly comfortable with it. But it was great. I'm really happy that it happened the way it did, and I don't think it's sunk in that I'm retired.
Yeah, I was watching the video, and you were so sweet, and you're so almost coy about the whole thing. You could tell that you were a little uncomfortable about the whole thing, but lots of people love you. Everyone I talk to is like loves you, and you have lots of adoring fans.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. I'm lucky that I've met some really nice people along the way.
So let's go back. You said you started when your daughter was 8 weeks pregnant, and you had worked at KCOP for 2 years before that. So you'd had a little bit of LA experience.
Yes.
But I was trying to do the math, and when you got to KBC? That was right at the end of the OJ Simpson trial, wasn't it?
Yes, it was OJ Simpson trial kind of happened while I was at KCOP. We used to have the Hour of OJ show. And then so when I got to, and then the Northridge quake happened about 3 months after I'd moved to LA. I was like, oh, okay, this is LA. But I think, yeah, OJ was kind of winding down already.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I feel
the
like,
chase happened, I think, the day Cheryl Fair started, my boss who hired me.
oh, I didn't know that.
That was our first day. She said, okay, this is LA.
This is LA. Yes, lots of big
Crazy.
stories, and I feel like that OJ trial, the whole process kind of changed especially the LA market,
Hmm.
changed it forever.
Certainly did. I mean, I mean, I remember where I was, and I'm sure everybody remembers the OJ Simpson chase. Like that was surreal, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable. I didn't even
Yeah.
understand what was happening because I was working in Memphis then, and then
Oh,
I remember that I worked nights, so I was the day of the verdict. I was in my
uh-huh.
living room watching it, and I was like, "Wow, that's crazy."
It was so crazy. And then I remember the verdict was like, wow, that was kind of an eye shock. That was an eye opener and a shock to a lot of people. But this just showed you that was a different time back then, right? I think it's the whole Johnny Cochran, all those people that became like quote celebrities after that trial. It was nuts.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
Lots of careers too
Hmm.
in the TV
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, exactly.
So and the other unique thing about your career too is you and David Ono anchored
Hmm.
together most of the time you were at KBC. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we kind of missed each other in Sacramento, worked at different stations,
Okay.
but I got to KBC a year before he did. But we started anchoring about 20, almost 29 years ago together. We've been a team ever since. And we kind of did some research and we figured out there was no other longer running anchor team, at least in the United States. And then we kind of narrowed it down to just someone in, I think Australia. a couple anchors there have been worked longer than us together. But other than that, he was stuck with me and I was stuck with him, for better or for worse.
I mean, that's amazing because anchor teams are kind of like, well, you guys seem like siblings
Yes.
here, but some anchor teams you can tell like each other, some don't like each other, or it comes and goes throughout the
Oh,
years.
yeah.
They kind of, but you guys always seem to make it work.
We made it work. And you know what's funny is David and I even talked about this in our interview, but we didn't air that part. But there were a couple times we didn't talk for a year or two. But we still had a rapport on the air. But we whatever it's like we were an old married couple. We'd go through fights, and it was always a love hate thing. But it's funny that we laugh now sometimes that we didn't talk for a whole year, a couple times.
Well, obviously, in my job, I kind of counsel some anchor teams. I'm like, I don't really care if you like each other, but when the light comes on, you like each other. You're best friends.
Absolutely. Yeah. You do your show. You get along and you have to be reasonable. And I've seen some anchor teams, it's like, oh, there's not a good rapport there, or there's not a good lot of chemistry. And yeah,
Yeah, but you got to make it work.
exactly. Yeah.
Sure. We talked a little bit about Cheryl Fair too. I was in Miami and I wanted to come to LA and I wanted to come to KABC and I interviewed there twice. The first time I interviewed was they were still on the prospect lot.
Right. That's where I started.
And then the second time was at when in Glendale, and it just for some reason never worked out. I think they offered me the weekend morning news,
Oh,
and then KNBC offered me the 4 o'clock news as a producer. So it all worked out in the end. But it really is where I always wanted to work.
isn't that funny? Yeah. KBC it has a reputation, apparently. There's a lot of people that, oh, I want to work there. And maybe it's the Jerry Dunphy days or Tawny Little days. Who knows? Christine Lund, all those legends that came from there.
What were some of the big takeaways and the big stories that really you're going to remember forever, or the experience?
Well, I remember 9/11, and David and I were doing mornings then. That was a really fun show. It was a lot of fun, but it was a serious moment. And our producer, Ed, tells us in our ear there's smoke coming from the World Trade Center. We think maybe a commuter plane crash or a helicopter. We don't know, but just take the live look from New York and say that we're following this, and we're going to find out what's going on. Next thing GMA swoops in, and then 9/11 happened and we saw the second plane go into the building. But that was surreal to think like they thought it was just a helicopter or something, a fire atop the building, and they didn't even. That's how soon it was, right after that smoke hit, that our producer told us, take the live look and tell people that we're monitoring it.
I remember that was actually my first week of working in LA.
Wow.
I was working at KNBC and I didn't know anybody, and we were living in a high rise downtown at the time. So I
Man.
went to Burbank, and then I was, of course, we didn't know what was going to happen. We thought,
Mhm.
could this happen in Los Angeles too, or something like that? So I
I
was a little
remember
nervous
that.
about being in a high rise for those first few weeks afterwards, and it was a surreal experience for being in a
Mhm.
newsroom that I didn't know. And I
I
didn't
can
really know
imagine.
anybody yet, so it was a very odd experience for me, for sure.
And we were all worried that LA was such a target because, it's another big city and it represents kind of excess of Hollywood and, glamour. And it's like, what's being hit next? And I remember being terrified of like, what are my kids going to do if something happens? Or what am I going to. It was terrible.
It was
Just.
terrible. How do working through that sort of breaking news and then having
Mhm.
kids too at home? How do you handle that?
It was not always easy because I'm always been really adamant about raising my own kids. Probably not the best idea about that. I should have gotten some help, but somehow my husband at the time, the girl's dad, we worked it out. He was a pilot, so he didn't work all the time. He worked weird hours. He would try to pick trips that were opposite of my hours. And, it was always a challenge, but I always wanted them to be my priority. And sometimes wasn't great for work. I'd have to say no to things and they didn't love it, but eventually they really accepted it. They understood that that was my main priority.
So if you work the mornings and then you work the afternoons, because I've always thought about this too, like for
Mhm.
parenthood, which is better? And they're both
I
hard.
hate. I didn't like the mornings hours. I hated getting up at 2 in the morning, but it was also more fun because we had it was a goofy show back then. We had celebrities on and singers, and I'll never forget we had this one guy he was coming on the air with his boy band, and we're like, oh, this band's gonna be, performing for us. But then there was some breaking news, and we had to send him home. And I remember yelling out the door, "Hey, okay, best of luck to you." And it was Justin Timberlake.
I
I
think
was like,
it
oh
worked
boy,
out fine.
I think he was fine without us.
That's funny. So,
It was a fun show.
so you worked with my friend Richard Ayub then?
I love Richard Ayub. He's great. He was the one that made the show fun.
Yes.
He had all these ideas. I'll never forget him going, "Let's do it." And he has such enthusiasm, and I love that he's working for Project Angel Food now.
Yeah. So I'm on the board of Project Angel Food. So Richard and I
Oh,
are very close. For
oh, bless your heart. I think they do such wonderful work, and that's a big cause that's near and dear to me. I do AIDS Walk Los Angeles every year, and I'm doing the Pride. I'm doing one last gig for ABC, and that's the Pride Walk,
oh, that's
June
amazing.
8th. Yeah,
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you
yeah.
for doing that and supporting
Oh,
the community.
of
Richard
course.
told me to ask you about one thing,
Uh-oh.
about an interview you had in the 90s with Donald Trump.
Oh, he remembers that. Okay, we were making such a big deal. Donald Trump, the whole thing coming up for the day, and we were promoting the hell out of it. And I was a little, I was a couple months pregnant with Audrey, my second daughter, and he walks up to the news desk with me and David sitting there, and he says, "Oh, this is where you sit." He's kind of looking around, and he says, "So, are you married?" I said, "Yeah." And so then he turns around like he's walks back and then he goes, "Happily?" And that was my microcosm with Donald Trump. I thought, oh boy, it was pretty funny. And I'll never forget when he got elected president the first time. My ex-husband texted me, "You could have been first lady."
Well,
Yeah,
too bad.
yeah, too bad, darn.
That's really funny. I always thought you had you and Julianne Moore kind of reminded me of one another.
Oh, I take that as a compliment. I love her.
Oh
What a
yeah,
great actress.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
watching you across the street, I'm always thinking like that was my first impression when I saw you all those years ago.
Oh, I love that. I'll take that one. Thank you.
So now that you've retired, what's next? Yeah, have you retired or
Wow.
ABC?
No, I'm retired from at least news business of all sorts. But what's crazy is my life, the universe is bonking me on the head. I was in the Eaton Fire. I don't know if you knew that.
Right.
Living in Altadena, and my house survived, but I'm still not in it. I'm still dealing with insurance people. So I'm living in the Hollywood Hills, which is completely foreign to me, but it's been fun. Okay, if I'm going to leave LA, it's nice to kind of leave it from Hollywood Hills and experience that part of the world. Um, I have a love in my life that we knew each other in our 20s, but we got back together about 2.5 years ago. He lives in Pittsburgh. So we spent a lot of time together, and he had moved back from New York to Pittsburgh to kind of de- like recenter his life, and went through a breakup. And then I had gone through a breakup, and I was sort of finding my way and going into my spiritual world and being alone and getting okay on my own. And we got together at exactly the right time, right before I turned 60. And my plan is to move to Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. So his kid lives here and my daughters live here. So we'll always come back, especially January, February months and stuff like that. But we want to travel. That's what I've always wanted to be a traveler and he does too. So that's the plan for now. And else, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'll do with my time. I like to paint. I took up painting a
Oh, yeah,
couple years
I
ago.
love it. Wait, I want to go back to this man. So you guys, did you date when you were in your 20s?
No, we were just friends.
You were just friends.
And that was the best part about getting together with him is he was in my friend group and he was never inappropriate, never flirty. I always thought, okay, this is a good stand-up guy. He's simply a friend, doesn't try to make any moves. And in our 20s, everyone's crazy back then. And then he was always a good guy. I remember him making me laugh and really liking him. So we had the like part down. And so when we got together, we already knew that we trusted each other, that we knew I knew who he was, he knew who I was.
So
And thank goodness he
re-
didn't change in 30 years. He was
how
still
did you re-meet?
through a fluke. One of our mutual friends called me out of the blue. Their daughter was Ashley Brewer, who used to work for us in sports, and they had called me out of the blue to say, "Hey, can you help us get an internship for Ashley?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." So fast forward, she's gone from ABC. She went to ESPN. They called me that right before Christmas 2.5 years ago. So we were just thinking about you, wondered how you are, what you've been up to. I'm like, this is crazy. I haven't heard from you guys. And I said, I'm good. I'm recently single again. Well, 2 years single. And I think I'm ready to meet someone. So if you have anything in mind, let me know. So I think, okay, we'll keep you in mind. So 2 weeks later, they literally run into him and his kid at the mall. And they kind of bumped into each other, like he was joking with him, and Steve was ready to like, what's this guy? And he's Robert. He hadn't seen them in 30 years. So he says, well, what have you been up to? And they said, well, we talked to Ellen, a couple weeks ago, and she's single. And he goes, really? And he got a little light bulb, and he said, well, give me your number. I want to get in touch. And so we had this whole ruse that the four of us were going to get together for old time's sake, but we sort of circumvented that and got together, just the two of us, and met for drinks. And it was just like instant, like we knew each other forever, and instant like, and then love came soon after that.
That's amazing.
And he truly is the person that's meant for me. I can honestly say for the first time in my life, I'm completely myself with him, and it feels really good to have that and to be loved for you, not the idea of you. I don't know if that makes
Right.
sense, but
That's
yeah,
amazing.
thank you.
It's a great
Yeah.
story. I mean, you've always lived in the Southwest, right? Arizona and Southern California.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you must
Yeah.
be something if you're moving to Pennsylvania.
Well, I go there all the time. It's a little suburb of Pittsburgh, and it's quiet, it's peaceful. You can walk places where he lives, you can walk to restaurants, and you never really have to get in your car. And it's something really peaceful about it. I really like, I see why he loved it. And his buddies are there, and they're married, and I've loved the buddies and their wives, and it's like instant couples to hang out with and friends, and it's been really a great experience going back there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Eaton Fire. So you were working and covering the Palisades fire, and then you went home and the Eden fire
Yeah.
broke out. Was that
Oh,
right?
it was crazy. I was doing the 6 o'clock news. So I was off at 6:30 after a whole day of wall-to-wall coverage. And I get in my car, check out my phone, and it says fire at Eaton Canyon. I'm like, I live near there. What's going on? And so I start driving home. It takes me about 20 minutes. And by the time I'm driving home from my exit, I see the fire up on the mountain, Eaton Canyon. Like, oh crap. And I live at the base of Eaton Canyon, about 2 blocks away. And Steve was in the house at the time. Our power had gone out since 2 p.m. So he was with my dog and not knowing the news because he didn't have any service or anything. And when I came home, the neighbors had just knocked on his door and said, you are leaving, right? And he goes, what's going on? And he didn't even know what was going on. He walked outside and saw the fire. And it was literally just like right there. So all I had time was to go home, get a few things in the dark, get the dog, get her food. And we went to a hotel in Glendale, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I didn't know if my house survived until the next afternoon. But
So you went to
all
work
my neighbors left their homes, except one next to me on both sides, and everybody else was gone. It was terrible.
and you went to work that day.
Did I work that day? That day I did not,
Okay.
because I was in the hotel. And what, did I go to work? It's a blur. I think I went to work the following day. They said, understandable, take one day. And then I came to work the next day.
So that's, as news people, we cover a lot of breaking news, but we're
Mhm.
not always involved in it. I mean, that had to have been, what was that experience like?
It was surreal because every time we toss a reporter, a couple times it would be a reporter that was on my street because I lived next to the street that was a big mudslide when it rained about a couple weeks later. They were interviewing my neighbors who'd lost everything, and I was talking to my neighbors who were just trying to find where to live and what they were going to do next. And a couple of them broke my heart because my neighbors across the street, they were I think they'd been there 39 years. And she loved that house. Maybe Peaches. Remember Peaches and Herb?
Uh huh.
Well, Linda was Peaches, and she's the sweetest lady. And her husband Stephen, they just lost everything, and their daughters had gotten married there. Their kids were born when they lived in the house, and everything was gone.
It's just so sad. I mean, and those people who lived, like you say, had lived there for decades, and it's just,
Yeah.
and you hope they'll be able to rebuild. Do you think people are going to be able to rebuild there?
I wonder that too. I don't know what's going to happen. I certainly not to the level that it was before because there's old Spanish homes. Their home was from I think 1930. Mine's 1924. And I think, why did mine survive? Like, why I had survivor's guilt. Like, why me? Why did my house live? I don't survive at this thing. It's beyond me.
But like you say, you're not through this yet either. Even the people whose homes survived still have a long way to go before everything's
Mhm.
back to
Yeah.
normal, if there even is a back to normal. What
Yeah.
is the process?
Well, I've been trying to deal with my insurance. I finally had to call my supervisor because I wasn't getting any response. They're supposed to send me a check about 6 weeks ago, still not in the mail. And I have one of the better insurances, like supposedly. And I'm still waiting for it to get cleaned out. When I walk into the house, it smells horrible. My Christmas tree is still there, and it's just like time stood still. And I hate to say it, but it was January 7th. My tree still wasn't down, but my whole plan was I'm going to take it down this weekend after this week. And I never got a chance.
I mean,
And
it's
it was,
almost 6 months later, and you're still dealing with this. And so,
yeah.
what needs to be done in your house? Does it need to be?
Well, apparently they have the contents people, whatever that means, but they come to your house, they take everything out, they clean it the way they're supposed to clean it. The things that they can't clean, like soft sofas and beds and stuff like that, they give you a ballpark price or they tell your insurance what they owe me to replenish that. And then the stuff that they can clean, they clean it in a different facility and then they all repack your house. Sounds crazy to me. And then the cleaners come and they clean your walls and your
Okay,
whatever. Or maybe the cleaners come before they repack the house. That's probably what they do.
but they
See,
come
I'm
in
still learning.
and get all the smoke damage out.
Yeah. It smells horrible. And it's just, there was a couple windows that were blown open because the winds were so fierce and like dust everywhere and dirt. And it's pretty ugly.
When do you think you'll be, or do you have any idea when you'll be back in?
I'm hoping by July that I can sort of get back in. But right now, the plan is I'm going to rent it or sell it. I don't see a reason to move back in, and I just need to move on and move to Pittsburgh and get my life going, I guess.
So the fire was on January 7th, and then on
Hmm.
February 10th is when you announced that you were going to retire. Were those
Yes.
two related?
You know, it, I had a year left on my contract. I wasn't supposed to leave till October 3rd, but our new general manager, Wendy Granado, I think she wanted to make changes. She wanted to get the new anchor teams together, maybe in the summer months, see who gels and who doesn't. And she was nothing but kind and had wonderful things to say. And she asked, would I like to retire early? And I said, she goes, it give you a chance to get your house cleaned out. And I know that, she wanted to make moves and she was very respectful. She could stay as long as you want, but I took her up on it because honestly, it felt different to me that I knew it was imminent and I knew that they wanted to get some changes going and I thought, okay, I'm ready because I need so much time with this insurance stuff. I've been putting it off and getting it cleaned out and doing those things that I need to do that it worked out pretty well for me. I was lucky.
So you were planning to retire later this year,
Yes.
January.
October 3rd was my date for sure that I had decided. Cheryl and I had done our last contract. She goes, let's sign a 3-year deal. And she goes, I said, tell you what, why don't we sign 3 years and 4 months or whatever it was? Because I want to get to 30 years. I want to get that damn trophy. Because Disney gives you these trophies at 10, 15, 20, 25. I thought, I want to get that 30-year mark. It was sort of like just a benchmark for me. And she goes, no problem. We'll get October 3rd, 2025. This was exactly 30 years to the day.
Well, that's what I kept thinking. Why did she not wait till she's so close to 30 years? Why not wait?
Well, I know, me too. I mean, but I was sort of kind of not,
I get it.
yeah, you know,
So
this news.
you knew 3 years ago you had a
Oh,
plan.
yeah, that was done. That was already set in stone.
So
I, mhm.
what led you to make that decision 3 years ago?
I think, honestly, Jason, I think my nervous system is not cut out for news. I think I'm more of an introvert. It sounds so strange to say as a TV person, but I'm an introvert. My first goal was to be a therapist back in the day. I was getting my master's at ASU, and through a fluke, I came up with this internship at CBS that CBS network paid for me to learn to be a reporter on the air in Phoenix. So I made $18,000 a year. I couldn't pass it up. And then I went through just a kind of a change of heart. I thought, well, I'll try this business. Why not? And, here I am 35 years later. But I think I knew that I needed to do something different in my life, something more peaceful, less time. It was just a time constraint every single day, knowing you have to be exactly one place every single time. And I think it just seemed like a logical move for me to quit the business. And I thought maybe I would be a PR person for a company or try to do some commercial work. I wasn't sure, but I knew I was going to try something different. And then Steve came along. He said, well, why don't we travel and you can then decide what you want to do? I thought, okay, twist my arm. I'll do that.
That's great. So I think a lot of people are kind of in that same position in our business, and not even in our business, in any business. When you get to a certain age, you want to do something different. You don't want to fully retire, or maybe you do. But what advice would you give to someone who's kind of having those feelings and kind of on the fence and trying to figure out an exit strategy or a
I
next
would
phase strategy?
maybe some deep self reflection. I think that helped me too when I went through that breakup about 5 years ago, before Steve came along. I did a lot of self reflection. I got very into my spiritual life. I'm not religious, but I worked. It sounds a little nuts, but I met a shaman lady that she was just a spiritual guru type of person, and it helped me just center myself and find balance. And I finally got to a point where I felt really comfortable in my own skin and I didn't want to apologize for who I was
So,
anymore.
what was that process like with working with her?
We did a lot of meditation. She did a lot of, she's also a PhD, so she wasn't like completely woo woo. She used to be a therapist, PhD from UCLA. And she helped me learn like what made me feel good in my own skin. I think with TV news, I kind of had imposter syndrome a lot, especially working next to someone like David Ono, who's the quintessential newsman, and he's an amazing news guy. And I think imposter syndrome is pretty common in news people. I don't know if you ever felt it, but
For
I
sure.
definitely had that.
I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, so
Oh, did you really?
yeah, I live in Los Angeles, and it is remarkable in itself. So yeah, we always have those, but I think that insecurity kind of drives you too.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's true. To be better. And that's true. What
So,
made you retire? Can I ask?
pardon?
What made you retire? What just made you decide that?
I decided I decided around the insurrection, after the
Um,
pandemic and the election, it was just a lot.
yeah.
I'm like, I need a break.
Mhm.
I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore. I do feel like it's just too much sometimes. And
Yeah.
people who can do it are amazing. When Cheryl
Mhm.
Fair was in the job for 19 years as news
I
director.
know.
I mean, I did it for 12, and
Hmm.
it was amazing and the best job of my life. But it was just I needed a break. I feel like too that you're right. It just weighs on your emotions and your
Hmm.
soul a little too much. But I applaud everybody to do this. I'm not anti-news. We definitely
I'm not either.
need those people. We need
Hmm.
people to do the jobs. It's just you need to know when you
Yeah.
can't do it anymore or don't want to do
I,
it anymore.
I think you're like me. You're a sensitive type soul. And yeah, it can weigh on you and it's heavy. Good for you.
Yeah. So
And
let's
for moving. And I love that you're doing this podcast.
well, the other part of it was it's been 4 years now, so I kind of missed news people and the conversation and kind of pointing out the positive aspects of journalism. We get a lot of
Mhm.
bad press, so to
Oh,
speak.
especially lately.
Yeah. So hopefully to do something a little positive spin on it.
I
But
like it.
talk to me about your painting.
Oh, well, I just thought, I couldn't draw a stick figure. I mean, but I always had this I'd have dreams or I'd have this fantasy about me painting. Like, and I'd picture myself painting. I'm like, why would I even think about that? It's so ridiculous. I can't draw anything. So I thought, you know what? I'll take some lessons. And I didn't want to just call myself a painter and try to plop something on the wall like a Pollock and call it art. I just couldn't do it. So I took like fine art lessons and I first learned to draw an apple and then an orange and then you do a bowl and then eventually you start doing some like you got, wow, I can actually draw something. And then you learned how to do just charcoal and shading. And now I'm doing oil painting and color, the colors and stuff. And it's really satisfying. I told Steve it's the only time I am completely absorbed and like in the flow and not thinking. And for me to not be thinking is a big deal as I'm an overthinker.
That's amazing.
And
You can
just,
see your
yeah.
progress through your Instagram too.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's fun, and I can't wait to take it up again. I kind of had to stop after the fires because my art studio, that place I was taking lessons, is in East Pasadena, and now I'm in Hollywood Hills, and it just wasn't. I didn't feel the drive, and I lost my art stuff is in my old stinky house, but I'm going to take it up again.
So your plan is to move sooner than later then?
We're hoping July.
That's amazing.
I, yeah, come visit.
Okay.
You would
It's
love
a
it. It's
beautiful
great.
city.
It's great.
Yeah. Beautiful area.
I would love you to meet someone who lives in Palm Springs named Dan Adams. Do you know him? Okay, Dan Adams was an amazing reporter in Sacramento when I was a weekend anchor there. And he retired. He lives in Palm Springs with his husband, Kurt. And he actually is such a newsman. He's such a fan. He'd watch KBC, came to my retirement. We've been good friends ever since. But he recently did the story about that fertility clinic getting blown up. And they said special correspondent Dan Adams, and he sent me he's still an amazing reporter, but he doesn't want to do it forever. But he just liked to do it because it was a local story. It was a big story. He did a great job. But you would love him. You'd love to meet him.
That's amazing. This is
I'm
an
gonna,
amazing small town too. Like you said,
yeah.
we walk everywhere. And we literally can't go anywhere without running into someone we know. It's
Oh,
the
I love
craziest
that.
thing.
I'm gonna set you up with Dan. You guys will love to meet each other. You'd be good friends, I am
Okay,
sure.
that's
Fast
great.
friends.
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. So, what advice would you give to some young person then looking to get into the business?
Gosh, it's such a hard business now. I see the young people and how hard they have to work. And, we had editors and photographers and writers, and they do everything. They have to be a one-man band. So I put my hats off to them. They work their butts off. And I think you have to just be versatile and know the social media deal and be so well-rounded that I couldn't have done it today. I don't think I would have I don't know if I could have done it today, how much
Okay.
they have to do.
With,
And I think that it's changed. I think people, in the old days, you say, well, I want to be an anchor because I can just sit around and make money and it's easy job. Well, they find out, well, it's not that easy. And you can't make the money that you used to make. It's not like the old days of Jerry Dunphy and Ann Martin. Those days are past. I think the business model has changed so much that I guess you got to be prepared to do anything.
and breaking news is a skill unto itself.
Yeah. It's
Being able
tough.
to talk and not talk yourself into a corner.
Yeah, exactly. Or sound like, okay, you're doing a chase and you're talking about this car going 50 miles an hour for the fourth time. And oh boy, his windows are tinted. It's like, what am I going to say next?
It is remarkable.
Yeah, they're tough.
Well, congratulations on an amazing career and congratulations on the next phase of your life after news. I can't wait to see what happens more
Oh,
with you
thank
and your
you.
art. What's the best pace if people want to keep up with you?
I think I'm still ABC7 Ellen Leyva, or is it ABC7 Ellen Leyva? Yeah, my Instagram. And then apparently I can keep it till October 3rd, but then they let me keep it. I just need to change it to Ellen Leyva.
Oh, okay.
So
So
I'll
you
try to
changed
post
it.
something interesting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And again, congratulations. Nice to
Oh,
meet you.
Jason, thank you so much, and congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've been a pleasure to speak with, and I appreciate you even wanting to talk to me. I appreciate my first podcast.
Not your
Thank
last.
you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
I'd actually never met Ellen before, so it was great to get to know her, and she's just as lovely in person as she is on TV. So that's very sweet. Very happy for her. If you want to follow her, she mentioned her Instagram, but it's actually at ABC7Ellen. And that's the best way to follow her and her progress on her life after news. Coming up in the next episode, Michaela Pereira anchored at KTLA in Los Angeles, CNN, Headline News, and Good Day LA. Now she's taking her skills in a completely different direction. You'll want to hear this. We also talk about how she nearly turned down her first TV job, but her advisory board, you'll understand what I mean when you hear the interview, her advisory board talked her into taking it anyway. That's next Tuesday. All right, if you want to stay in touch with me, please subscribe if you haven't already to wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, etc. You can also watch the video versions on our YouTube channel at Life After News. Follow me on Instagram at Mr. Jason Ball or at Life After News Pod. New episodes drop every Tuesday. If you like us, give us good reviews and share with friends. Thanks so much.